Hey, everybody. So glad that you guys are here with us. I am here with Lisa Skavdahl, our resident runner, and just super excited to have her share with us and just tell us all about running, how we can get involved with running, how she started in running, and I'm going to let her take it over and introduce herself to you guys.
Okay, I'll try to keep this intro short. Hi, Lisa here, and I started running. My dad is a huge part of my how I started running. I did a lot of ice skating. I did ice skating all throughout high school into college. Well, ended in the end of high school. But he got me to go 2 mile. I think we went on a 2 mile run, and I thought I was gonna die. And I felt I collapsed on the grass and said I was never gonna run again. And I think I was in fifth grade. But anyway, then I do training runs with him. Just he's like, you got to do this for your endurance. You got to do it. It'll help your ice skating programs out. So I did it a little bit, just like 3 miles here and there. And then my brother did cross country, and there was an alumni run every year. So this, I think it was my freshman year, and my brother he must have been a junior. And he's like, Lisa, my dad's like, you got to do this alumni run. My brother teased me, come on, you got to do it. And I ended up I didn't do, like, hadn't done any training. I was ice skating and maybe running here or there sometimes with my dad. And I ended up placing fourth in varsity. So my coach was my math, and I didn't like it at all, but my coach was my math teacher. So I pretty much had to run. So that was my freshman year, but I was still ice skating. So I did like track and cross country every other year. I did like freshman year cross country, track, sophomore, junior year cross country, and then senior year I did track. So I did running there, and I went to state. My senior year in cross country. But
in track and field, did you do the longer distance runs as well?
I did. So I did the 1600 and the 3200. Which one was the 2 mile?
Right.
And that was my
800
favorite.
was my favorite, my absolute favorite.
Yeah, see, the 800 was it was very hard for me. That was a very good sprint for me. Like, good sprint. Yeah, but I loved the 3200. So then I ended up not doing, I just continued running, but not competitively. I didn't do it competitively in college. I trained with the girls a little bit because I wanted to do it, but my parents vetoed me from doing it, which was probably good. Like, I just pushed myself so hard. And I graduated from nursing school when I was 21.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was on a super fast trajectory, and I ended up getting a chronic condition in nursing school probably because I just never slowed down. So anyway, I didn't end up, so I just have continued running all these years. I actually got really, really sick when in 2010 and had to stop for a bit. I ended up responding poorly to fertility medication. They didn't do anything. They just they attacked my irritable bowel, and I got down to like 99 pounds.
Wow.
Got pregnant with my daughter. That pretty much healed me as I thought it would, but I was still really low weight. I was like 110 pounds when I got pregnant with her. She was a total miracle, but then went through a lot of stuff. My ex-husband told me he didn't want to be with me at 8 months pregnant, just on and on. But anyway, it's just my story. Yeah. But then we tried to work it out, had my third child, Koa, and I was like, running was my therapy through all of this. And I'm like, well, I should just race, because ever since I had my first son, who's now 14, I'd run with the stroller, and it was my therapy. So we do like 10+ mile runs. People are like, I'd probably be doing 60-mile run weeks, like, without training for anything. Right. And so I was like, no, I hate mornings. I worked as a nurse. I worked swing shift 3 to 11:30. I did not want to get up. I was not getting up for a race. I just did not do mornings. So finally, like 2016, November of 2016, Thanksgiving weekend was my first marathon. I was like, I think it was I ran like the marathon. No, I ran 20 miles in October, on October 12th, like a month and a half prior to the race, because that was my birthday weekend. I either ran 20 or 26. I can't remember. Um, so then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a marathon. I did my long run. I'm going to do it. I'm ready. And I trained, like, I was like, I just want to Boston qualify, which would get me, I had to hit like 3:35 or under. So I got 3:34:08 and I Boston qualified at my first marathon.
You're like, yes.
So that's when I just was like, okay, people like run their whole marathon careers trying to qualify for Boston. And I was like, this is a gift. And I loved it. So I'm like, I need to use it. So ever since then, 37 marathons later,
Right. You're like,
I've been running and a lot of miles, but it's gotten a lot more intense. In March this year, March 2020, I after watching the Olympic trials, it was always like in the back of my mind that I wanted to go. It was like, and I knew like I know my times need to come down. I was like, I need a really good coach. And I hired Ryan Hall, who's a Olympian, and he's the fastest American marathon and half marathon record holder.
oh, nice.
Yeah. So he has me running like 95 to 100. It was 102 this week was my highest mileage with training with him. So yeah, the work, and it's not like, cause I've done 100-mile weeks in the past, but they're like, okay, we can just do like some slow paces, but these are like 100-mile weeks with some really intense long runs and medium distance runs, 15, 16, 20, 22 milers in there. So it's been really good, and he's definitely getting me faster. But and I'm learning a ton about running and just my body and how to take care of it and recovery. And because I mean, I'm not over 40, but I'm not young either.
Right.
I'm 38, so I'm not in my 20s.
You're like, the knees aren't what they used to be.
Yeah. So yeah, I love it. It's like this last week I was talking to my boyfriend, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna hit these workouts. I really don't. And I did hit them. I had a really good run Friday, but I just sit there and he gives me these workouts, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't. And that's good. It's to the place where you're
Right.
just like pushing to your peak, and it's how far can you test those limits without breaking. And that's like the important part, is like, how far can you test without breaking?
Right.
Because you can mentally break. It's okay to
mental
mentally
strength
break.
is also built.
Right. The mental break, like I can mentally break, but it's like, okay, we can't, just the physical, like you still have to be able to physically keep going.
Right.
So it's a balance.
That's so exciting. So how many total run competitions have you been in? Because last year you still participated, even though everything was more virtual, right?
Well, yes. So I've done 37 like marathon distance 26.2s. I think before COVID, I didn't do any virtual marathons. And I think this year I've done something like 12 or 13 virtual marathons or marathon simulation runs, because Ryan likes to give you the entire 26.2, which is pretty kind of rare for a coach, but he knows his athletes, and if he knows that you're capable, he'll give it to you. Anyhow, so I've done something like 12 or 13 virtual. So I guess 37 minus 12, that's how many races, give or take, that's how many races I've actually been in. I was able to do a 50K in October, which was crazy. It was like 7,200 feet of elevation. which is based in 31 miles, which is basically climbing half of Mount Rainier over 31 miles.
Wow.
Which was absolutely nuts. And my coach, he was like, anyway, there's a lot I've been learning about just like training and not just entering races because you want to race, because I will enter a race every other weekend if you let me.
Just because.
Because I love to race. But right. I mean, it's, yeah. But so I did that. I did Revel Marathon, and then I did about 3 other races before COVID. So I was able to get in like, I think 5 actual races this year before COVID completely shut everything down.
Right.
So I think there was with Revel, it was 3 marathons, that 50K and 1 half marathon, which is extremely light as far as races go, but because of COVID, it was impossible. So yeah, it's been a different year, but I've actually probably improved the most this year without racing. I've done a lot of time trials and a lot of virtual races. But because of Ryan, I have improved the most. June 6th, I did a time trial that I had a friend. I've had a friend that I paced me, and my boyfriend bike paced us. So he was doing fluids. And so that was like the closest to a race experience I probably got in one of my virtual races. And I was able to get a 3:02:34 marathon.
Oh, wow. That's so awesome.
So, yeah. So I have a race in February 7th, and my coach has me at like, hopefully breaking 3 hours and getting a 2:55. Anyhow, but that's enough about my story.
Mona Lisa asked, we got questions.
Good, because I want to start the questions.
Have you thought about doing ultra marathons?
So I've done, yes, for sure. So I did the 50K, which is considered an ultra. Anything over the marathon distance is considered an ultra. That's my second ultra. The first one, it was a road ultra, and I wouldn't even consider that an ultra, only because it was road, and like my time was 4 hours and 26 minutes because it was pretty much all flat. Oh. It was basically just adding 5 miles onto a road marathon, which is much different than the 50K I did over 7,200 feet of elevation, which took me double my marathon PR. It took me 6 hours and 23 minutes. I was just like, okay, we'll be out here forever. We'll be out here till 2021. It's fine. I like really had to put a different mentality on, because I'm like, I'm going to be running forever. But I actually won it.
Oh, that's so exciting.
But I mean, it was a smaller race, but it was like, I just persevered and kept going. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
You're like, I'm going to get through this no matter what.
Someday I'll get through it. Maybe tomorrow. Yeah. But yeah, no, after, my goal is the Olympic trials 2024. And then after that, I have a lot of ultras that I'd like to do, like beyond 50K, 50 milers, 100. I definitely want to do a 50 miler and a 100 miler.
Oh, that's
but my coach is like, no, you're not doing that now. Because
no.
it takes a lot. Well, it just takes a lot out of the body, and it takes a lot to recover from. Right. And it would really not mesh well with my marathon training. So,
well, on that note, for recovery, because you do so much running,
yes,
what type of recovery do you do so that you can turn around the next day?
Well, right now, that one thing I do several things. Right now I have my recovery rapid reboots on. I'll try to show them to you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So they're just like, my kids call them my puffy pants. So I do, though, like now that I'm increasing, like I'm at 90 to 100 miles a week, I'm really like, I have to really focus on recovery if I'm going to hit. If I was just doing 100-mile weeks with slow miles, it wouldn't be as big of an issue. But when I'm trying to hit certain paces and have three hard workouts a week, my recovery is super vital. So I do a lot of Epsom salt baths. I do icing as needed. In the winter, it's harder for me. In the summer, it gets really hot here. So I'll take an ice bath after almost all my hard workouts.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, ice baths as needed, definitely in the summer. In the winter, it's give and take. And I do some foam rolling, but I really do have an amazing boyfriend that he massages me a lot.
Nice.
Like I like would not be able to hit the workouts I'm hitting without him massaging me. Cause I'm like tight, my legs won't fire. It's just so that I definitely use massage. And I go to I'll go to a massage therapist, but he knows my body so well that it's almost not worth my time. So I'm extremely lucky in that aspect, because I really don't know. I'm like, Ryan, I like to my coach, I'm like, Ryan, I'm not sure if I didn't have the support team I had, if I could even be hitting these workouts.
Right. That's so, and it's so important to have such support.
And he's like teaching my daughter how to massage now. He's like, okay, here. And if you watch it, there's a funny video they did, but because they're not always pleasant massages. People think it's not. It's like deep,
because your legs are so tight that it hurts.
Right.
They're sensitive.
And that lactic acid buildup. And my kids have video. They Mom, you scream, and they have this video.
You're crying.
Like, this is how we get massages. We scream. I'm like, so they like to make fun of me, but it's like something they'll always remember. I'm kind of like, okay. But I mean, it's just part of our life. Like, they get it.
Now, Mona Lisa wanted to know, when you do your ice baths, how long did you stay in? Is there a certain amount of time?
I would say at least, like, I try to aim for 10 minutes.
10 minutes. And when you did ice baths, did you just take your ice from your refrigerator and dump it into the tub?
In the summer, I will. Because you want to get it like 40 to 50 degrees, 60 degrees, at least below 60. So 40 is really cold, but so 45 to 60 degrees. Oh, wow. So 45 to 55 is kind of the sweet spot. So in the winter here, the tap water, I just run pure cold, put it on pure cold, and it's cold enough.
And it's the right temperature. And then you're still like, huh?
Oh, it's still freezing. But I do in the summer, sometimes the water coming out of the tap is warmer, so I do end up pouring ice in it. Or I'll put frozen water bottles in it. So that takes the temperature down.
Nice. Now, Margaret wanted to know, what would you say, is there a good balance between running and strength training? Do you, is your coach having you do strength training right now as well?
I do twice a week. So he focuses, core work is really big. Mm-hmm. And actually the way like core work, it's not what you would think. It's half squats. Because the squats in general are one of the best exercises for core strength, because you're having to balance.
Right. And it's working those squats.
Right. So I do a mixture of half squats, front squats. I've been doing a lot of lunges lately. Like I do those twice a week, no matter what. And then he alternates between calf raises and a hamstring curl exercise.
Right.
So those are the main 5 exercises I do. If I'm weak in an area he sees, he'll alter, like he'll have me do different exercises.
Right.
But right now that's what we've been focusing on, working. But definitely like half squats are really big, and front squats and the lunges.
Nice. Now, with your sneakers, do you have just tons of different running shoes or do you just go through running
I
shoes?
used to not have so many. I used to before didn't get super crazy. I have a few pair, but I actually only like use 3 pair now, 3 or 4 pair. So I have my next percent for like hard workouts, the ridiculously expensive shoes for like hard track workouts, um, for long threshold runs that I'm having to hit specific paces on. I have my Brooks Hyperion Elites, which are different, which are like the next percents. They have good cushioning, and I've also tried Hoka's because of my issue is I can't find a good for the amount of miles I'm doing. I can't find a cushion shoe that's not I'm not feeling like is slowing me down a ton.
Right.
So I do train in a faster shoe for my harder workouts. Now, my recovery workouts, I'm often doing pushing a stroller or on trails.
Okay.
So I'm wearing trail shoes. And if I'm pushing the stroller, I will use my Brooks, like my Hyperion Elite shoe, just because I'm already pushing 75 pounds.
Right.
So I don't see the point. I'm already slowed down. And the reason I've just running those is because the cushioning is so good and it's prevented it's prevented injury. Like it's not causing me foot issues.
Nice.
Like so yeah, I'm either just depending on my workouts, I trade up my shoe.
Right. Competitions, when you're actually in the competitions, do you have competition shoes? Or do
Yeah,
you
I
then just pick
save.
what shoes you're most comfortable in
Well,
for
I
that
saved
environment?
like I actually was leaning towards wearing my Brooks Hyperion, and I have done a race in them. I did the Rebel, which it wasn't the shoe; it was the intense downhill race that killed my quads. But I've had some really good. The last 2 workouts were really good in my Nike Next Percent, so I've decided to wear those.
Nice.
So I've been trying all the fast shoes and deciding which ones are the best, and I've come up across those too.
For regular runners, how often should they switch out their running shoes?
It honestly about every 4 months.
Okay.
I mean, if you're doing 2 to 3 miles a day, you can probably go like 5 months, 4 to 5 months. But if you're putting in anywhere like an average of 6-ish miles, 5 to 6 miles a day, I would say no more than 4 months.
And then that just keeps your foot more supported and risk
Right,
of less injury.
typically, depending on your running style, either the fronts, the toes, or the heels will get run down.
Right.
I mean, I've had like the race shoes they're coming out with now, they don't last as long. And that's why I've stopped training so much in my next percents, is because they're $250 and I'd be go through them in 2 months because they broke down because they're really light. There's just the way they're made. And so I'm like, okay, I've got to switch. I can't just blow through for training. So I really have primarily trying to use those for racing or hard workouts.
Right.
So that's only once a week typically. And then, then they can last me longer. But I mean, I blew through those so badly. I showed my coach the bottoms of them. He's like, you need new shoes. But I tried to make them last because I loved them and they were expensive.
Right. You're like, darn it, no.
Yeah, but you really do want to change them out about every 4 months.
Awesome. Now, as with the strength routines, what kind of strength things would you do to help prevent running injuries for people that are coming back with like weak ankles or back. Is there anything you would suggest to them to
I think front squats and half squats, but I think like some definitely for back issues, it's getting your core really just a really strong core. Because I remember when I first started trail running up mountains with my boyfriend, I'm like, my back hurts. But since then, it's been like, it's amazing how like your body can changes, because now it's not even an issue. I don't even think about it,
right.
but it's something you have to develop. Because I used to, I think I posted a while back, I did a Peloton yoga class, and I would do headstand, and my headstand was like that. Like I had a really bad, like I couldn't do it straight because I didn't have the core strength. And my boyfriend ended up getting a picture just like, because I hadn't done it in 5 or 6 months, but it was always like that. And it was like this time. And it's because I've developed that core strength.
Yep. Core strength is important in the riding too.
So yeah, I would definitely say it's hard, like without seeing the person and being like, oh, this is the right exercise. Right. I would definitely like physical therapy. If your insurance can cover it and you're recovering from an injury, that's like, that's always my recommendation for people.
Right.
I have a nursing background, and I've had issues in my own life, like women's health after having kids, where I've gone to physical therapies, and it's been super empowering and super helpful, to the point where like at one point I ran a marathon. It was the Seattle Marathon. They changed the course, super hilly. I had a hamstring issue, and I was like, I had qualified for Boston the previous year. It's like a year and a half gap sometimes. And I thought I wasn't going to be able to run. Boston, I was like, I can't run. This is going to be awful. But I went to physical therapy and I was fine. Nice. So I would definitely say if you have an injury you're coming back from and you're not able to do the things you've enjoyed, like running, or you're trying to get back into it, I would say go find a good physical therapist. And hopefully like someone that maybe leans towards, a lot of the physical therapists anyway are very sport minded, but someone who's sport minded is going to be super helpful.
Nice. Now, for people that have run before, but then took, I don't know, say 10 years off, life happened, and now they're ready to get back to running. How would you suggest they get back into it?
If they're starting, say if they're starting from scratch.
Starting, well, they like, may have run, but it's been 10, 20 years.
Right. But they're
so they're like kind of back to scratch.
Okay. I would, and especially if they want, I know there was a question on there, if they want to get back into long distance running, right, it's going to be a very gradual build up. You're going to start, you might even start like running 2 minutes, walking 1 minute, running 2 minutes, walking 1 minute, for 30 minutes. So however, maybe that's 2 miles.
Right.
But so I like very gradually start out with a goal week, maybe 10 miles for the whole week, which is 2 miles a day.
Right.
So something that's doable, that your body's not like, just say you did couch to 5K, it's doable. And it doesn't seem super overwhelming.
Right.
And then just like how you go from training up for a 5K, 3.1 mile race, to a 10K, a 6.2 mile race, to a half marathon, to a full marathon, you're going to gradually increase your mileage. But like, I would say no, especially on the lower, say if you're doing 10 miles, maybe the next week aim for 12 miles.
Right.
And then next week, 14 miles. Like I would say, especially early on, no more than 2 miles added per week.
Per week.
And
That's good.
then maybe when you're up towards like the 50-mile range, you can go push it to like 53 miles and then 57. And slowly, I mean, you start at 10 with a goal of 10 miles a week, and 6 months down the road, you're able to run 100 miles,
Right.
which seems impossible. But if you train right, if you do take your recovery serious, and if that's your end goal, it is achievable.
Awesome. Now, what do you do nutrition wise to keep yourself on point? Is there a certain diet that your family just normally goes? Are you more clean eaters or?
Yeah, I definitely still struggle with protein, but I don't do hardly any gluten or dairy. Like pretty much non-existent. Dairy's like non-existent. I've switched. I do a lot of yogurt,
Yeah.
but I've switched to dairy free, and so I try to supplement collagen for a protein source because I used to do a lot of Greek yogurt, and I've worked with my herbalist. I've worked with nutritionists to figure out like the best anti-inflammatory diet, because when you're stacking that many miles up, your body's constantly like trying to recover.
Right. Inflamed.
It's like, what is exactly, so what is the best? Like today I woke up, I'm like, I ran 20 miles yesterday, I ran 22 on Friday. Saturday I wake up and everything feels not hugely inflamed, but it's noticeable to me.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. But I know that's how I'm going to feel. And then Sunday, I have to do 20 miles. And it was better on Sunday because it's day 2. But right. Typically, a lot of times you're sore on day 2 and more.
Right. More sore on day 2.
But you're learning. So this is like just the whole learning process. And so it was like really getting like following an anti-inflammatory diet and stuff that's going to help you recover faster.
Nice.
And yeah, I definitely have taken out gluten and dairy, but right now with the amount of miles I'm stacking up, I'm like protein's my biggest weakness as far as trying to get that much protein in for the workouts.
Do you do any type of protein bars to help you out, or?
I like the Perfect Bar. I do a lot of nut butters. I think the Costco, sometimes I have the Kirkland, like 20, it's like 20 grams of protein. I can't remember what it's trying to think of, but it's basically no sugar. It's like sorbitol and it's 20 grams of protein. The Costco, it's like, I forget what they're called. There's chocolate chip and brownie, and there's I bet a ton of people have them.
Right.
But, I can't remember the brand they're called. Then everyone started making their brand, like Trader Joe's, but that one's one of my go-tos.
Oh, nice. Let's see. And one of the last questions was it better to ice or to heat after a run? How would you know to do either or?
So I'm going to say both, but I think I did see that question. If it feels inflamed, I would say ice, but there is huge benefits to hot cold therapy, because if it feels like painful to do heat at first, like get in a Epsom salt bath, that's kind of always my go-to. And so if it's actually painful to do that, I would say ice first, but typically it's really helpful to take like a hot, especially in the winter months, like take a hot Epsom salt bath and then either ice it afterward or just take an ice bath. And if it's just your knees, that's one thing. Like me, like if I really need it, I will do a 20-minute Epsom salt bath. Like as hot as I can tolerate. And then I will go directly to, I will drain the water and I will fill it up with ice water for 10 minutes. Because you always want to end on cold.
Okay.
But so, yeah, typically like 20, if you can get 20 minutes of Epsom salt bath. And then if you don't have, I mean, it's a while. So if you can just get ice on it afterward, that hot cold therapy can be really helpful because the heat rushes new blood into the area and the circulation just improves so much.
That's awesome. Oh, I'm trying to think, did I have any other questions? Do you guys have any other questions? I'm like, I know these are all such great information. They were saying good tips.
Okay, so
you're bringing value.
If you guys have any other questions, just post them on the page or on the tag that, and I'll definitely try to answer them.
That's awesome. Well, do you have anything else that you want to share before we wrap it up today? I appreciate your time so much. I don't want to keep you from your relaxation while you have your boots on.
Well, I appreciate this group and the motivation and inspiration. And I would say if you're more of a cycler, like definitely check out running. And I've done both, and I definitely want to eventually get into Ironmans because I do like both. Right. But I think it's a really good mix of running and cycling. I think and cycling can actually, like for runners, it can actually definitely help with running. But I would definitely say, but if you're ever wanting to get into running and have more questions, definitely tag me. You can message me. Any questions, I'll do because I could talk running like all day long.
We got one last question. Okay. Margaret wanted to know, because she knows sleep is important, how much sleep do you actually get, since she knows you're a mom as well?
Oh, I am pretty, I take my sleep pretty seriously.
You're a good sleeper.
Well, no, not always. My boyfriend, no. I sometimes have to take tea to help me sleep, especially after a really hard effort. Your legs just, they feel hot for one. They're so fired up and they're just sore. So sometimes it's like, I'm like, he's like, you were shifting all night in bed. You were like rolling. I'm like, I was not. And he's like, you did 22 miles. You should be dead out. I'm like, I know, but I told you, I can like, it's very hard to sleep after huge efforts like that, or particularly after a marathon, because your highs, like you get this adrenaline high, and these highs are so high. But anyhow, so yes, I take my sleep very seriously. And so typically I do get 8 hours of sleep. Like if I get 7, I'm just like, oh.
You're like, I can tell.
But so I will go to bed with my kids. Like I will put them to bed, and sometimes I fall asleep with them because I'll lay down. I have a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 14-year-old. So my 5-year-old, he's still definitely mom. I mean, he's very mama's boy, and he's very, Mom, will you please cuddle? Okay. And I'm like, oh, I can't lay down. I'm going to fall asleep. And then
like, boom, we're both out.
I am out so quick. And then I had to crawl into my bed. I'm like, it's time to go. Yeah. So I try, like, I would love it if I was in bed by 9 every night, but my kids, they have we try to put them to bed. We want them asleep by 9. In school nights are a little easier, but so if I can get to bed, like ideally, like Matt Wilpers, I think he said, if I can get to bed by 9, it's a good night.
Right.
But if I can get to bed by 10, honestly, I'm doing really good. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome. But yeah, sleep is huge because that's when your muscles recover.
Right. When everything recovers.
Don't sleep. I'm like, I don't know how people, even people that aren't athletic, like manage on 5 hours of sleep. I think it's insane.
Right. No, I'm not. My husband can handle 5 hours of sleep.
Oh, no.
His body wakes him up. But me, I I can sleep like the dead and I'll sleep my full 8 hours. If I don't get the eight
Oh,
hours in, I'm a little cranky.
that's how I am. I'm like, don't wake me. I'm like, I'm like, it is not light out. Like my son could come in the middle of the night. We had to start a new rule. We're like, no, you are not allowed to come in our bed until it's light out.
Right. It's like, no, just showing up.
Yeah. And he actually got it. We were so thankful. We're like, okay, get our sleep now. But yeah, no, sleep is really huge. So yeah, definitely. You'll notice you'll notice an improvement in your training for sure.
Yeah.
Like if I don't get my sleep, I don't have the capacity to push like I normally would.
Right.
I have no tolerance. I'm like, I'll just quit. I'm done. I'm like, this isn't going. The workout isn't going how I want it to go. I'm done. Which I mean, I don't do. They would not typically ever do, but it's hard. It's really hard to push when your body just doesn't have the energy to give.
Right. And it's just tired.
Right. So yeah. That's probably a good note to end on. Sleep.
Awesome.
Sleep.
Yay. Well, this has been so fantastic. Thank you
Yeah.
so much again for sharing with us
Yeah.
and giving us everything. And once again, you guys, if you have any questions for Lisa regarding anything with running, drop it down below. And either I will tag her or she will see it and get the answers for you guys. So
I
look
will. And if I
forward to
don't,
doing more of these lives with you guys.
yeah, I
And
would totally do this again. So maybe in a couple months
yes, that's so awesome.
we can talk
Great.
about something.
Then you have a fantastic day, and thank you again for sharing all this information with us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.